A quorum being present, the hearing of the Committee on Education and Labor on Accountability in the Department of Education's oversight of the student loans and the Reading First program will come to order. I want to welcome everyone to today's hearing on accountability in the Department of Education's oversight and student loans Reading First programs. I would like to thank Secretary Spellings for taking time to testify before us today, and we have a lot of ground to cover. For several months now, investigations by the committee and elsewhere at the state and federal level have produced a stream of troubling revelations about unethical practices in the student loan industry. We now know that for the last several years, it's been a common practice for lenders to offer gifts and other inducements to college financial aid officers and others in exchange for high loan volume. At a $74,000 cruise paid for by J.P. Morgan Chase in 2005, student financial aid officers dined on fine spiced quail and filet mignon. In one particularly egregious example of an apparent quid pro quo, Indiana University essentially accepted a $3 million line of credit from Sallie Mae in 2004 and later dropped out of the government's direct loan program. We know that lenders have inappropriately accessed the National Student Loan Database in order to find private information about borrowers for marketing purposes. We know that lenders abuse the federal law to reap questionable windfalls, costing taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars in overpayments. We know that lenders design market materials to be deliberately misleading by making them look like official government correspondence in order to trick borrowers into responding. All of these practices have come at the expense of students and their families. Lenders have spent millions of dollars to violate the law, and their illegal actions have cost families untold millions at a time when soaring college costs, and this is an outrage. These practices also carry a high cost for the federal taxpayer at a time of tight budgets and huge federal deficits, which is another outrage. We now know that for the last several years, excuse me one second. I'm sorry. The federal student loan program must be managed in the best interests of students and parents and taxpayers. Doing so is a responsibility of the Department of Education. I agree with the New York Attorney General Andrew Cuomo that testified before this committee last month when he said that the department had been, I quote, asleep at the switch, unquote, when it comes to overseeing the federal student loan programs. In fact, Mr. Cuomo might have been too polite. Although I applaud the proposals of the administration's 2008 budget to reduce some of the excessive subsidies made to lenders, subsidies that essentially finance bad lender behavior, the administration has otherwise failed to provide meaningful oversight on the student loan industry. In 2001, the Bush administration scrapped plans to issue a Dear Colleague letter to schools and lenders instructing them to end the practice of trading gifts and other inducements for student loan volume. In 2003, the administration ignored an alert memorandum from the Department's Inspector General urging similar action. In January 2007, the administration allowed nearly $300 million taxpayer dollars to walk out the door because of antiquated loophole that allows lenders to bill the government at a higher rate of interest. The department knew about this 9.5% loophole for years, but failed to close it. Over the last several months, the New York Attorney General Cuomo has led the way in the investigations into the student loan industry, and many other state attorney generals have begun their own investigations. But the Department of Education has been conspicuously missing from action. What makes all of these even more troubling is that many Department of Education Department officials who have worked directly on the student loan programs appear, according to press accounts, to have their own conflicts of interest. Some have owned stock in student lending companies. Others are part of a revolving door between the industry and the department. And I'm pleased that the department's Inspector General has agreed to my request to investigate these conflicts of interest. We need to know whether these conflicts help explain the department's incredible oversight failures. The work of the Office of the Inspector General brings us to a second topic of today's hearing, Reading First, a program that was rife with conflicts of interest that the Inspector General exposed in 2006. In a committee hearing last month, we heard testimony from 3 former members of the committees handpicked by the Education Department to review products that educators use to assess children's progress in learning to read. All 3 of those former committee members, Roland Good, Ed Kamanui, and Deborah Simmons, profited either directly or indirectly from the sale of the specific reading products that states were inappropriately pressured to use if they wanted to get federal grant money. We learned that from the Education Inspector General about his referrals to the Justice Department regarding potential criminal misconduct by Reading First officials. We also heard about how the former the director of Reading First, Chris Doherty, had improperly bullied states into using specific reading products. Mr. Doherty's wife worked for an organization linked to those products, and in fact, a fact that Mr. Doherty repeatedly failed to disclose on financial forms he filed while an employee of the Education Department. Here again, we have to ask why the White House and the Department of Education allowed this mismanagement to continue unchecked. Mr. Doherty in his testimony provided one troubling explanation, that he was just following the department's orders. Mr. Doherty testified, I respected the chain of command at the Department of Education, faithfully executing orders from my superiors, which I never had a reason to question, and keeping superiors informed about the program. When I look at the whole body of evidence that has been amassed about both of the student loan and the Reading First programs, it is clear at a minimum that the Education Department's oversight failures have been monumental. But many people, including me, are wondering if that is the end of the story. Was this simply laziness? Was it incompetence? Was it a deliberate decision to look the other way while these things happen? Or was it a failing more sinister than that? These are the questions that we're hoping to bring to answer today. By an overwhelming bipartisan vote of 414 to 3, the House yesterday approved legislation sponsored by Mr. McKeon and myself, the Student Loan Sunshine Act, to clean up the student loan industry. We are considering proposals to eliminate conflicts of interest from every program within the Department of Education, including Reading First. I am hopeful that the testimony we will receive and the discussion that we will have today will assist us in these efforts. We must make sure that the problems like the ones I have described do not repeat themselves. Students, children, parents, educators, and taxpayers deserve to know that the government is working on their behalf, not for the financial benefit of a handful of well-connected individuals or organizations.